Everybody, I'm Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how you can paint this charming mother and daughter in a poppy field scene. I love this. It's so French countryside. It's so all of my memories of traveling with my mom. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hey, guys.
He's going to be tracking me with one of our 5 cameras, so you have every idea of what I'm doing. We really try not to be mysterious on the show in any way. So any place that we can zoom in, any place that we can explain a technique more, we really try to do that so you can succeed at your artwork at home. If you check the description below, the brushes are listed there, the materials are listed there, but you'll also see a link that says TAS. If you click that link, it's going to take you to the web page for this painting, where there's also a step-by-step pinnable printout that you can either print out or pin on your Pinterest boards, and it will really help you understand how the layers go together. So if you're following along the video, that's going to be really helpful. And guess what else is there? A traceable, because maybe you're not freehanding this in today. We're going to do this one a little bit more like we did the girl in lavender. So we're going to be using that, and I'll show you how to transfer an image on the canvas. That's going to be super fun. I am ready to sort of jump on in.
Okay.
Because it's Sunday, and I'm ready to just breathe in, breathe out, paint a painting, living it around. Oh, he's so fast. All right. So one last lovely look at this, and I'll put this aside as my reference so I remember what I'm doing. I have a 9x12 little artboard panel here. This is Artist Loft. You could use, stretch canvas. You could use paper for acrylic. You can use a rock, as many people now are doing. Just anything that you want to paint on, but this is what I'm painting on today. We have some wishes on here, which we like to do on our show, which is just about putting positivity into the universe. It's just an act of optimism, and it always makes me feel better, so hopefully it helps you too. Today's wishes are healing for Linda's knees. We're wishing those knees heal up and recover and are better than new. Strength and healing and freedom from addiction and joy to family. An anonymous wish was given out for an adopted daughter, and I really wish that. Listen, if you're fighting with addiction, it doesn't make you a bad person. It's a battle a lot of people go through, and if we can help with the painting, but we do wish you the strength and support that you need to be back to being yourself. All right, and then Aria is sending love and hope to those that are fighting depression, and I thought that was very sweet. She just wants, to make sure that you guys have support and you lift it up and remember that this is part of our human experience. All right, to the color palette. Woohoo! Over here, I don't have all the colors out yet because I won't be using them for a little bit, but I have cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, phthalo green, burnt sienna, cad red medium, zinc white, and titanium white. Now, on the zinc white, you may also find it called mixing white. So you do want both whites. It really helps. If you don't have both whites, don't not do the painting. Just know that some of the areas where the transparent white are used might be a little more challenging. That's it. That's the whole... It's not going to ruin your experience or undermine it in some really specific way. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 8 Cambridge today. It's a bright. It's a brush for acrylic painting because it's a mix of bristles and filaments. And I'm going to sort of rub my wishes into the canvas so that when I get to painting, they don't come through.
Now, why do they disappear like that?
I use watercolor pencil. The exact pencils I use are, I believe, in the description below. You can use any watercolor pencils. You could use chalk. You just want something that isn't going to stain the painting above it and is easy to remove when you're ready to. This is also nice to have around for sketching things in or working out design ideas. And it doesn't need to be really any more erased than that. That will pretty much take it down. And I picked a color that I was going to be using sort of throughout this whole painting. So what's nice about this is it's not going to throw me off completely. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of sketch in very lightly some basic objects. And I'll take my phthalo green, which is super bright green, right? I'm going to come over to my yellow ochre, and that's going to kind of knock it back. It's not quite as bright as my cadmium yellow. It's much more orange, so that neutralizes that. I'm going to come into the upper right side of my canvas, couple inches down. I'm going to make a little mark. I'll come over here, almost in the same position, but not the exact same position, and make another little mark because we don't want our hills to be super symmetrical. They don't really do that. Volcanic objects being so moody. And I'm going to, on the edge of my brush, just come right here and draw a really lovely little mountain line. You know that right there? It's simple. Nothing too challenging. I'm going to try to get this right in the same space. Just make sure my objects are somewhere in similar ranges. Try to keep them pretty much the same across the study to the final painting. But you never know with me. I'm going to come across here. I've got this nice, very distant, sort of flat horizon line. And you'll see this a lot in agricultural areas. Now, there's a really wonderful shadow that I want to make sure that I have in my hill. So I'm going to come over towards the right. Then I'm going to zig back. And these little shapes are going to show the hill and its shadow, and that's going to really help inform me on the hill. And then right here, coming down, I'm going to have a little foreground area. So this is where the focus of my girls are going to be, right in this space. Here's going to be most of the landscape. That's the middle ground, and way back here is the background. Isn't that fun to do those things? Yeah. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a smidge of my ultramarine, and I'm going to work it into this mix. So it's like a little bit of the phthalo green, right? And a little bit of the ultramarine. Because I want this to be a light and distant grayed out color. And ultramarine is going to give that to me. See how it grays it out? I'm going to go ahead and add just a smidge of my titanium white. Because I want to make it as light as I possibly can. If I do, however, mess that up, I've got my zinc white here. And I can actually use that like a fog effect to make it a little more grayed out. This is our first layer, and we're just going to paint this in, and we're going to use the brush, and we're going to paint all this in that gray. Doesn't seem that challenging, right? Because what we're doing now is called blocking a painting. We're coming up with the basic shapes and places that something is going to be. I'm going to add a little more white. Basic shapes and places that something is going to be. And where the sky is going to be, where the mountain's going to be. And we're blocking those in. You can see I'm just being rough with my brush. I'm not being particularly precious. All right, that's just the first layer. See where that got bright there? I got to make sure that that gets knocked back. Because if it's too bright, what's going to happen for us is that the mountain is going to come too far forward in our visual illusion of the painting. Obviously, it's not going to exit the canvas and come get you. That's not going to happen. But it may definitely cause you a little bit of challenge when you're doing that. Now I'm going to keep coming forward with my green and my yellow. Sometimes it's nice to sort of sketch this in and get this little first bit in that may be happening here. And this whole space right here is this more yellow-green. See how we have that there? That's that more yellow-green. Not too bad. We know where that is. First layer. So this is a little bit like an acrylic ground, but it has the object sort of sketched in. Now, as I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of this green and gold and some of my burnt sienna. And I'm going to begin the background area right back here. Getting that first layer in. And hopefully, even loosely, you're starting to see the zones of the painting that are existing. That's my hope. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Is everyone taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out?
Yes. This is definitely that part of the painting where it's a little confusing because it's sort of like just big fields of kind of muted color.
Big fields of kind of muted colors. It's a very good description of this. And I'll talk back through what we did here again because I know sometimes it helps to hear things again. So we mixed a muted kind of green, gold, gray color. It's like we used a little ultramarine to push it back. And that's where we're going to have our hill. We have this warm brown that's starting to come forward that we're going to build some of our red on. We have our middle ground, which is back into the gold. And then as we come forward, interestingly enough, we're going to take a little of our brown and our green, like you do. And this is the forward of the canvas.
So this is called blocking, right?
Yeah, we're blocking. It's like an underpainting.
Yeah.
But it's an underpainting that sort of says, stuff be here.
Gives you sort of the guide of what.
Yeah, and it lets you know these values are like this. Now I've got this nice green color here. Uh-oh, I missed some of my hill, so I'm going to come back. See what I'm doing?
Get away.
Well, I forgot to paint that part.
Runaway hill.
It ran away from me. But again, we're blocking, so we don't have to be super stressed about some of this. I'm going to make another dark color for right here. That's going to talk about my shadow. You got to love your shadows. So let's just take our green and a little bit of our ultramarine blue and our brown and see how that makes a very dark color. Come right here. Nice.
Now my brain started to tell the story of the hill that got away.
The hill that got away?
It turned into an island.
Sometimes your hill gets away from you.
It went
Sometimes
on
your life gets away from you, right? You just got to keep breathing. Control all the stuff. You can just control what you have going on in your own mind. All right. And sometimes not even then. Sometimes even that gets picked up, taken away. I'm just bringing that there. So you can kind of see the beginning of that shadow. I'm going to get some more of this wonderful dark color. And if this is dry enough, I'm going to come here and I'm going to very loosely, this is on the corner, little soft, random little brush strokes. We're going to make some little tree lines. So we see our distant little tree? Distant. These are the trees that are at the edge of the mountain and the edge of the farm. Wherever you see poppies in France, what you see is a farmer that was just not dealing with that particular field. They're letting it. They're letting it go, and they didn't feel like weeding it because they're a weed. I just can't get over that. It just trips me out so much. You see, it's just not too big of a deal. What I want you to pay attention to, if you look along this line, these shapes are pretty random, and you don't want them to be too repetitive, right? You want them to feel like trees are growing here, and some of those trees are maybe proud of themselves and get taller, and some of those trees maybe not as much and they get lower. But again, it's the first layer. Rinse this brush out thoroughly. Rinse it, rinse it, rinse it. And we're going to do the sky real fast. So I'm going to get my white at first. And I'm going to come along the edge of this mountain. See how I'm doing with the white? Now this is going to work as long as the white is still wet. I'm going to get a little of my ultramarine. And I'm going to come just right here and brush in a distant little sky. See how loose and free that is? These are just back and forth little brush strokes. The white's already here, so I have almost that glow at the mountaintop that you want. Sometimes happens. Ever observe that? And then as I come up, I can just press harder. Get a little more of the blue. Trying to get it without the green. But if I did get green in it, we would be okay. It would just be that color sky. I mean, I didn't send home homework or report to your friends and family, so you do a different color sky. Nobody's going to know. I'm not going to tell on you.
You could.
I'll cover for you. I have done it before.
I taught it that way, but it came out differently.
You know, well. No. I just cover for him. On the rare occasion somebody's family member comes to me, I'm like, yep, that's what it was supposed to be. Doesn't even matter what it is. I side with my students.
Absolutely.
I'm just
solidarity.
All right. So I've got sort of a nice little windy sky, don't I? That's lovely. That's charming. I like it. Do you like yours?
I like yours.
I'm going to sip my coffee and take a deep breath. What a nice Sunday. Remember to breathe in and breathe out. So let's talk about what we just did there, just a little bit while we're letting it dry, and then I'll hair dry it, but I just want to talk to you. So we put a distant mountain. We kind of grade those colors. I got a little excited with that bump there, but that's all right. Those things will happen. We put in our shadow here to show where the mountain is more in shadow. We've got the beginnings of some little trees. We put in the close-up foreground, which is going to be deeper and richer, and it's nice to build that on something. The middle warm tone, right, of our middle ground, that sort of mid-space between the girls and the poppy field that's in front of them. And then this reddish-brown area where we're going to be putting distant poppies. So that's what we've done. We're very accomplished. Do you feel kind of good?
Yeah. I think it's turning out pretty good.
So your job as students at this level is to not be hard on yourself. If you were really up on my canvas, and I'm sure John tries to show you, it's
Like-
very scribbly. See? Scribbly.
We can get even more zoom.
So
but you can see-
scribbly.
You don't need to get any more zoom than that.
So when you're
You can
watching a
see
YouTube
scribbly.
video, mine or anybody else's, that camera is zoomed out.
Yeah.
And
When you get in there,
yeah,
I mean,
it
it's super
kind of
scribbly
doesn't
in
tell
there.
you the truth about how the painting looks. So I want you to really see the truth. So you know that you and I are in the same place.
Yeah.
Right? We're doing okay. Now I'm going to make sure this is dry so that I can put the next layer. What you really want is you want this to be bound to the surface, right? Dry. So that when you get scruffily on your next layer, you're not pulling up the underneath paint. If you're painting a good paint and you bound it correctly, it should not lift. If it is, it may be that your paint does not have enough binding agent in it and you may need to change brands. Are you ready?
Yes. Okay. So I feel like she just like gave me a total opportunity to play with my cameras. So thank you, Sherpa. And while we're on that, don't forget to use your air mover in the lowest heat setting because heat can induce color shift in student paints and it can cause shrinkage and it can cause your acrylic paint, no matter what grade it is, to get soft and pliable because heat makes acrylic soft and that's not good. So use it on your cool heating settings and that's good.
I keep forgetting you made me the nice little holder there. Thank you for that, by the way.
It's a clip.
It works.
You know, sometimes.
Honey bunny, can you make away my coffee? Love it when the kids are home on the weekends.
All right.
Now I've got to do some stuff. I'm going to push this mountain back a little bit and get the next layer of trees in. This is sort of my next layer. I'm going to load my brush up. You see me going back and forth. Quite a lot of yellow ochre. And I'm going to go ahead and get a little of my ultramarine here, as you can see, to make this very neutral green. This isn't the bright green you would get with phthalo blue. And I may grab some of my zinc white just to neutralize some of this color. I'm going to come over here. Might sort of layer out my mountain. What's nice is that as you're painting this next little layer forward, a little more blue in there, the layer underneath creates a lot of tonal depth and variance. And as you get that second coat on there, the painting begins to integrate a bit. And you want it to do that. You want it to integrate a bit. Oh, sorry, baby. Thank you. You're the best. The best, the best. You're the best.
So I just got.
No
really-
one's got the strength to keep you down.
I'm going to pass along some inside baseball good news.
Oh, inside baseball good news?
Inside baseball good news.
What's the inside baseball good news?
Okay, so you know how we had that new camera face set up so we could see your face?
Yeah.
And we wanted to hope that folks like Cheryl would have an easier time reading your lips?
Yes?
She just confirmed that it does.
I am so glad that helps.
So that's
That kind of, we get asked a lot, like, why we do certain things. That would be,
that's one of them.
that's one of the reasons why we did a thing. Because if you are hard of hearing or a member of the deaf community, being able to see people's faces, facial expressions, those other visual communication cues can help you understand what they're saying. I'm pulling a lot of zinc white into this. Can you see how I'm doing that?
Mm-hmm. At least until we train the robot overlords to read our words in real time faster.
If anyone is working on that, I can promise you YouTube is.
They got the biggest AI.
Yeah, they really, really are putting a lot of development dollars into their live closed captioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful for that. Because they, too, are very committed to us being able to have that experience. Can you see how the milkiness of the zinc kind of puts that distant atmosphere on the little mountain there, and it's kind of pushing it back, making it kind of chill. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my green and my brown. More brown, maybe. And I'll come here, and this is quite dark. I like to glaze over this with the zinc.
Now, when you say glaze over it, you don't mean that just, In passing, that's a technical term.
That's a technical term. Yeah, I'm going to take a very transparent paint and come over this to knock this back, but I want this deep value to be happening here.
I don't want you just to glaze over the fact that
I
you're
might
glazing.
get a little bit of my burnt sienna, and you can see that darkens everything just a bit. I want this to be so deep and dark. Dark, cool mountains.
You know what this show
Soft
needs?
on my edge here.
We need a live drum kit and a hook.
Why, are we going to hook me off the stage?
I don't know.
I mean, I understand if you want to, but it's going to make teaching the painting super hard. Whatever you need to do, I'm good. It's pretty chill for me. So you can see that this second little layer really adds some personality to our trees. Let me just dance in a little brush. See the brush dancing? The dance brush.
See some more brush dancing.
Dancy brushes. I need to let this dry a little bit so I can put the zinc over it. So I'm going to let it dry a second, like you do. And I'm going to work a bit on this layer right here. Now, I'm going to get a little of my green into my brown. And a little yellow into it. I'm going to start to work some of this back here. Notice that I'm going back and forth in these brush strokes. Can you kind of see that?
Mm-hmm.
Creating those little variances that you want. Little green, little brown. As I come forward, I'll get more into the green. Deeper green coming forward. There we go. That's looking pretty nice. And now I'm going to get my green into my yellow ochre. This is a brighter green. Brighter, but you can smidge it with a little burnt sienna. And let's back and forth and weave some of these values into your landscape. So whatever landscape that you're painting, unless there's a ridge that is absolutely definitively blocking your view, you'll want to softly merge some of these color zones into each other. And what you're seeing me do is grabbing brown and grabbing these different colors to be doing that. So what I have is a nice multi-tonal landscape, as you would have, because some grass would be greener, some would be drier. I just get that second layer on here because this doesn't really happen until we finish up the painting. So all we're doing here is just making sure that our ability to create depth is much easier. Letting that dry still for a second. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to grab a little of my brown and my cad red. See how those are kind of going together?
Yeah.
A little bit. And you can get a little of your ochre into that so it's somewhat desaturated. And let's come back here and red up this distance. See how that's redding up?
Yeah, I do.
Let's red it up. These are far away. The poppies are so far away here as to almost appear that they're together. But notice that much like water, I'm not making very orderly brush strokes, right? I'm randomizing it. Randomizing it. Even coming forward, randomizing it. I layer it. Get a little more of that brown red color. And you just dash it where you can. You really don't want it to be pure cad because it'll jump too far forward. Just making little, everywhere I'm making little kind of clusters, that's like little pops of flowers that could be happening. They're a little out of our view line, if that makes sense. That's looking pretty dry. I'm going to really rinse this brush out because I don't want any pigment in it. And I'm going to grab some of my Just Ink, and I'm going to show you this technique because this works for fog, like you're doing those misty woods and you have trouble getting the misty trees. If you ever had trouble getting the misty trees, this is another way to create the mist on those trees. Look at this. I'm going to come over this with just my zinc. And you see what's happening? You can still see the green underneath. Absolutely. Can't you? But I'm glazing this zinc over the top of it. If you've never done this technique before, go ahead and leave it brightly dark. Or if you do it and you don't like it, how you would change it is you would let it dry and just paint over it. But this is something I feel like it's important you should see. It is how I got the distant little heel effect on this. So I try to always show you authentically how I achieved a certain look. And go right over these trees. But you can see it's a glaze. It's very transparent.
And you're kind of scrubbing it on.
Yeah, I'm just like loosely scrubbing it on. There's diffusion of light here. There's a lot of ways to do this. This is just a way. And if you don't love this effect, just either don't do it or paint it out. But that's how I did it. That's how I got the distant little hill effect. I like to haze the tree line a little bit. It's a weird deal, but kind of help push those back some. Now I'm going to come in here and again, got my yellow ochre and some of my phthalo green. Let's come through here and make sure we can bring some of it back into the red areas. Like little patches of green that are kind of showing through.
I'm going to zoom in there. How stiff is that brush?
This brush is so stiff.
It's leaving
it doesn't
brush
soften
marks
as I paint with it, which I love about it. Never ever dealt with these. It's got a mix of synthetic filament and hog bristles. Hog bristles, when they get wet, are not ideal for acrylic because they get so soft. They're wonderful for oil because that same thing doesn't happen with them. But in acrylic, they get really soft and mushy and they take in too much water. But this particular brush, which blends both, doesn't do that to me. And I am so grateful to it for that. I'm going to take a little of my green and brown, mix them together. Adding then my yellow ochre. And we're going to, again, see how we're making some tonal character, isn't it?
Yeah.
Little tonal character right here. I love it. Rinse it out. Now this next bit is really interesting because you don't really need the green to be dry because you do want, and so I'm going to take some of this green, some of this yellow green here, over to my CAD, and it's going to kind of knock it back. It's a really cool effect. I'm going to begin to talk about some faded poppies that are, they're a little maybe more here. Finding little patches. A little more red on my brush. Oh, look at that. Can we see those come forward? Those are coming forward, aren't they? Da 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 da. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Just a bit. Oh. Yeah, that's happening all day.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. Now I'm grabbing just a little more red, and I'll touch little bits of it. I don't want it to be the pure CAD. I do want a dirty brush. Dirty brush is a powerful tool. Because as I move this forward and I pull in more and more red, having this muted value is really going to be my friend.
One of the things that you told me, it was a long time ago, that always stuck with me, is that it's nice to leave paint on the brush because it helps mix it around other places on the canvas. tying the color palette together.
It does. It unifies your color palette. That's the other thing having a limited color palette does too when you're painting. Sometimes I like to get every paint out that I have. But actually, if you limit your color palette, sometimes that's helpful because it does create a more unifying effect. Now that I have this sort of worked out here, I'm going to go ahead and maybe just a little bit of the cad yellow into this. Yeah, it's too bright. Nope, too bright. You just don't want it that bright. I'm going to go ahead and get a little of my red here. I've knocked it back with some yellow ochre. And let's start. I picked up too much paint. This will happen to you on occasion when you're like, I picked up too much paint. I'm going to make little touches. These little touches here.
Little touches.
Little touches. Not every touch.
Now,
good touches.
These don't have to be quite as horizontal as the ones for water.
No.
These can
but I wouldn't go like at a crazy obvious diagonal.
But
that might confuse people.
But that you're not necessarily trying to make them all nice little neat level dashes.
No.
They're going to pop, pop, pop around, huh?
They are. You know, we've got our girls that are going to be happening here. We just want to make sure poppies are peeking out. And when we have the girls, we can really, really pick the poppies that peek. Right? Because maybe we'll want to put a couple between their dresses. All right. So now this is the stage where you're going to come through and you're going to just make sure that you're really happy with your values and your greens. So I'm going to make a nice deep green. I'm going to come through here. I like to do this. Some places between where I have the red bits. Not everywhere. Don't go everywhere. Be crazy, crazy. Come forward, maybe a little bit stronger in that green. Isn't that nice? So we've got that feeling maybe of some poppies that are closer, that are thinking about it. You could always come back and add some distant red. See how we do? You can play with your poppy fields. They are like seriously the funnest things to paint. All right, I'm going to dry this. I'm going to be good. I'm going to dry it. I'm going to show you how to transfer on the image.
Okay. All right. Well, while she's doing that, I'll say someone asked if natural fiber, if they were struggling with natural fiber brushes because they shed. And that is something that happens with a natural fiber brush, especially when they're new, because those fibers have been heat treated for lots of different reasons, to keep any bugs or parasites off of them, but also to make the hairs have special characteristics of absorbing or being resilient. I'm just talking about the fact that natural brushes do have a tendency to break off a little bit, and that's because they're natural. They go through a treatment, but after you used them for a little while, they should stop shedding, and maybe one every once in a while, right?
Yeah. So basically, if you buy a hog bristle brush or a natural hair brush for artistry, you should go home and vigorously wash it. Vigorously wash it and allow it to dry. That should pull out any just loose, because a lot of these are handmade. They're not machine made. That should pull out the few loose bristles that you'll have. It should be a small amount. It shouldn't be like, and we all have a different idea of a small amount. Some people think a small amount is 2, and I'm like, a small amount is like 15 or under. Like, I should see some hairs, but I don't want to see like 50 hairs.
Right.
After you get that handled, then you can look at them in paint, and you will on occasion have a single hair rarely fall into your painting. But if it's still happening often, it's a problem.
If it looks like someone's shaving in the sink, there's a problem with your brush.
Yeah. If it looks like somebody's shaving in the sink, it's a problem with your brush. All right. So this is going to let me move up my landscape a bit. I'm going to put this in. Okay. So when you're using your traceable, you want to put that placement of your central figures here where you want it exactly. And you can see like I got a little crazy with my mountaintop. It happens. I don't really care. But you do want to be aware of where these guys are. You wouldn't want to put them up here. You wouldn't want to put them over there. This is Serral transfer paper. It's in the description below with the link. You can also rub chalkboard chalk or white pastel on this, or yellow pastel, and then do the same method. So either works. Which, you know what? I forgot to get the pencil. I'm always something.
It's always something.
Always. And that's only frustrating because each show I try to have nothing. That'll work. Like every show I try to have nothing. Nothing. But every show there's something. Nothing if not consistent. All right. So when I'm putting this on here, I want the bright yellow side down and the dull yellow side up. And I'm going to just simply trace over all the lines. And what should happen is that the yellow should transfer off of my drawing onto the canvas very easily. Now, I like this particular Serral paper because it is for art. They make other things. You definitely don't want like the transfer paper for quilting because that's for fabric and has a wax base and is super challenging to remove.
And we'll have a different result.
Completely, and you can't get it off. So it's just a whole problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I put in some highlights and shadows here for you guys if you find that that's hard for you to keep in mind where you had them. You know, I kind of work them in. You'll notice that the hand is actually fairly simplified, yet in the painting it looks really gorgeous. That's going to be a lot about our highlights and putting our highlights in the right places, which, yes, you can do that. You'll be able to handle that no problem.
And was that a number 6 Cambridge you were using?
8 the whole time.
It was an 8, number 8 Cambridge.
The whole time.
Gotcha.
I'm going to be getting into the 6 in a little bit here. Right now, the 6 is a lot, the dresses, and the 4, like I try to get it like, I think I have them listed, it's 8, 4, and 2, I think. But it is going to be today because that's what I pulled out. So just want to know where all my objects are so that it's really easy for me to paint them in. The nice thing about the colored pencil is that you know like where you've been. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that I have a strong transfer. And I'm going to make very light lines here so I kind of know where the deep poppies will be on my girls. Peeling that off. Ooh. So that's going to be really nice. It's going to be easy to layer those in, and we'll have some nice reds and things showing through. Worked out pretty darn well. You got to love it. So the next bit, I will be moving into my smaller brushes. Let's get a number 4 Cambridge, or any number 4 bright that you have. And we're going to paint in these sort of base values. So the dresses are a mix of the ultramarine and white. And where we have shadows, there'll be a stronger blue. And then we'll pull them into the bright whites where we want to show that there are some highlights. So see, I'm pulling this down. And I'll talk about the form of the fabric and everything in this way. And don't worry that they look like they're floating a little bit because we've got a lot of grass and things to move up into here. A lot of poppies to move up into here, so you're okay.
Yeah. Just keep adding layers.
It's just my favorite. On this side, I'm going to go ahead and get it a little brighter. Just so I remember, oh yeah, this side is got more of a highlight to it. You know what we're doing?
Yeah.
Just simplified stuff. You know, you get a little more ultramarine wherever you want to have the shadows. That's where those will go. Number 4 bright. Just pulling this here. Because this side of the figures, that's where the shadows are. Just fun fact. I'm in the titanium white, not the zinc, in case you were wondering. Now that I've got that in, I'll come and get a lot more white onto my brush, but it's still got quite a lot of blue in it. And I'll make sure that this side is painted just a little lighter than the left side. So I'm starting to talk about values on those figures very loosely, which I love doing. Let's do the same for the little girl, who is just a joy to paint. And I really like to get quite loose with her dress. I don't know if you remember the no-sew tutus, where you just take tulle and you wrap it around a ribbon and make a whole amazing, full, gorgeous little tutu. But that's definitely what's happening here for me. And just make that nice and full. Right here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab just a little bit of white. It comes right there. Towards the front. The dark bluer color towards the back. Boom, boom. Nothing's ever gonna take you down. I don't know why that's in my head today. Okay. I need some more yellow ochre.
You've got some songs in you.
I do. It's just stuck in my head. That's how it is. That's where I'm at. I accept my reality. I do accept it. So I'm going to take a little of my black and I'm going to mix it into my yellow ochre, and it makes a sort of off yellow. Come here. Kind of paint that little hat in. Just the beginnings of it. I'll come down here to hers, and again, back side is more in shadow, so I'll sort of paint this in. Now, I really pop the shadows with my blue, but it's just nice to get it laid in like that. These little values help us later when we need it. Because then we can see how things are going to be. So you can see the values in the hats?
Mm-hmm.
Super easy, right? How you doing? Take a deep breath. Let it out. So we have some hair and some skin tone to deal with. You guys ready to deal with some skin tone?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to take out a little of my yellow ochre, and I'm going to finally now put out my quinacridone. You might have noticed we have a lot of reds in this one. We have cad red light, cad red medium, and quinacridone magenta. The reason we have quinacridone magenta is just for the skin tones.
Oh. Now, those all have different subtle undertones, don't they?
Yes. There is a book in the description below with 400 recipes for different skin tones.
So if you have a skin tone that's slightly different than ours, you can go mix it up yourself.
Like literally 400 of them, so you can match better than makeup.
Chances are you probably are going to need that cross-reference guide. Because
It's very helpful. It's one of my very favorite tools. I have a lot of these formulas, memorized. And of course, at this point, I have some of my own. So you can see what I'm trying to do is get this rosy peach color. I'm going to add just a smidge of my burnt sienna to it. And interestingly enough, just a smidge of my cad yellow. And when I get it, so I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I'm going to go ahead and take my number 2 bright because I want to be able to have a tighter painting space. And I'm going to paint in the dark value here. I'll add a little white to it, but basically I'm painting in my dark value first. It's going to be some dark skin tone at first because it's the first layer. Oh, let's put our glasses on so we can see what we're doing.
Really? All right.
Well, I mean, it does help. Seeing what you're doing does help.
Let me get my camera to adjust on focus. There it goes.
And you can take off any extra of the yellow line when everything is dry with a clean brush and a little bit of water on it. There we go. Shoulder here. Gonna come right there. You know, there's hair, but we want to bring this down to the... Definitely want to have all of that showing. Right. Even though we're going to have hair. And then on her arm coming down, we definitely. Now, while all this is having a minute, I can get back into my number 8, and I'm going to come back into my green and my brown. And right here, I want you just to start this work. See how we're doing? There we go. This is going to come down a little bit. We've got a dark area behind her. I don't want it all the way in there, but I definitely want to make sure that I'm showing some of it. And the brush directionality is really going to help me for later. I may pull her dress down some more. Just looking at it as it dries.
Yeah.
I may just decide to. It's really up to me. But
Just
while that's all,
the dress.
yeah, it's just whatever I want to do. I'm going to get my number 2 out again. Or 4. 4 is fine. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to get a little bit of my cad red. Go ahead and knock it back with a smidge of green, but you still want it to be, you know, pretty bright. I'm going to tap in some form shapes that could be closer poppies. You know what I'm doing? They're brighter red, they pull forward. Where we sort of already implied them, but we just want to make sure that they are showing well. See how the bright red just pulls it forward?
Yeah, it does.
There we go. Little hints of this out into the field. I can feel like something's afoot here. And we're going to have a lot of green and a lot of stuff over that, but at least that layering is present there. I'm going to rinse everything out fairly thoroughly. I'm going to go ahead and get a little of my black into my burnt sienna. It's going to make a very deep brown just under the hat. I'm not going to do all the hair, but I have to start to talk about this dark part of the hair. I'm going to go real short. See how I'm short? And the reason is, only where I have the dark hair value do I need that. So those are the only places, and hers has a lot of light edges, so I definitely want to leave room for that. Because the dark hair doesn't necessarily be in shadow the whole way. let's give it a dry so our next layer has a beautiful structure to sit on.
There. So while she's doing that, I'm going to say I love hanging out with you guys. Thanks for coming and being in chat with us today. It's been really nice coming back and being in the new studio and having to, be able to do all this stuff with you guys. So thanks for being here. I was just saying how nice it is to be in the new studio with the new cameras and hanging out with everybody.
I have to agree with that.
It's pretty nice.
I'm going to put a lot more white out over here by my skin tone so I can start lightening those up. I've got this here. I'll pull out that bead. And we'll start seeing if we can lighten it up enough into the white. So we have a dark kind of value, this lighter kind of value. This is going to pink up easily. You can see we've got this light color. So we can start to work our first little runs of paint. And I can darken some of this very easily by putting a little of my ultramarine in there if I ever have to have a deep shadow. Right now I'm going to try to stick within the range of where I'm at here. So just a smidge, right? See how it's just a smidge? Pulling that in. So my base skin tone, but kind of there. I'm going to come here at the elbow because I know I'm going to have a shadow here. At the wrist. Gently and carefully up the arm. Probably should have switched to my number 2 bright. Under my hair and at the shoulder here, there's another little dark shadow at the back. That gives me that dark thing. Let's switch to our number 2 bright that's a little crisper and not as fluffy. You don't want it to be so fluffy. I'm going to grab this, and sometimes I like to get back into my quinacridone and just pink up my skin tone if I want to. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Just pink it up. There's a little bit of a highlight there. That little shoulder might be a bit in highlight. There we go. Some cad yellow. So when you add that warmth of the yellow into it, it kind of implies that there's sunlight there. Warmed up the skin tone. Just bringing this through. Coming to the top of the arm. Down. Just breathe in. Definitely, definitely. Put a little highlight on the tips of the fingers, right? And if I need to dip in my water to make sure I've got good flow, get into my pink to make sure I've got good pink, that's all I'm going to do. I definitely want a little highlight there. That's the wrist bone. Come down here. Front of the arm. Lightening up her little tone. Get a little more of the pink into that. Fun to pink her up a bit. See that little pop of pink right there underneath?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit at the front here. Maybe right here I'm going to add a little bit of that pink there. I always like to pop a little extra at the fingers. A little more of our skin tone. Now I'm going to take my zinc out and just a smidge of my darker color. See what I'm doing there? I'm underneath her arm, and I'm going to very softly blend those together. And what you're going to see is that the skin tone begins to smooth out. I love using my zinc to create those unified spaces. Up there. No, I want it. There. A little bit. I love painting the skin tones.
Those layers really make it all come together so nicely.
It does. It just suddenly starts to be its own thing, right? So I've got my little shadow colors here with this. I can easily come here and now, see this dark color that I had mixed earlier? That's a really dark shadow. I'm going to come here to the elbow. I'll put it there, just a touch. Oh goodness, it's just a touch. And then also at the front of the wrist bone. But, like I said, just a touch. I'm going to get my zinc. Just make sure that things are a little smoothed out at the hand. I want an easier, softer transition on the hand. We want to show that that's got the shadow, but I just want a softer transition. Now I'm going to take a little of my zinc white and right here above this elbow, I'm going to add a little of that touch. A couple right there. You can do the fingers if you like. Shoulder, shoulder. A couple places. And do a little bit of shading on the girl. She does not require as much. Right? She's much more, and you can always, what's interesting because we have so much quin, I can always come in and see that almost purple. Look at that. Just a little bit. Pink, 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 come here. I see it. It should come here. There we go. Brightening up this side of the arm. And let's go ahead and get some of the zinc here. And add a little reflection on her arm there. It's coming under her hat. The other thing, we may want to take a little of the cad yellow into the skin tone. A little bit. And just warm up the front of her arm a touch. There we go. Always fun, right?
Yeah.
Those little touches. So all you have left there now is the shadows, which are fantastic because you take a little bit of our ultramarine and our zinc. See that? Marine and zinc. You're going to come here, top of the arm, very gently past that shadow, up the forearm. Nice little one right here. It happens there. And there's another little one at the back that will peek out from her hair. One that comes underneath her elbow. Now I'm going to get into my more titanium white. I'm going to come off the back of the hat. and up the back with this blue. And it needs to be kind of like, you've got to be able to tell that it is for this to work. The cool color of it. There you go. See where I'm in that range? Kind of up the hat band. I'll do a similar thing on her. On the hat. Band and back of the hat. Are you guys with me where you're putting your blues?
Yeah.
I may have to knock some of that blue back with the hat on her, but that's okay. And then the last place I want to make sure that I have some of this blue is where her arm is in shadow under the hat. I'm going to let all this have a minute and I'm going to finish our little hats. So I'm going to take my black and yellow ochre again. Make this really interesting color that I have. A lot more white this time. I'm going to do the front of the hat. Brush that back. Front of her hat. I can leave that little room for the headband. I can always come and get some of my just white. Right there on the hat. Front of the brim. Top. Oh, that looks really nice. Maybe along the brim. Catch a little light here. Yeah, we're catching a little light on the edge of the hat. I can put my cad red light out at this stage. Should be able to anyways. Just a smidge, because it's going to be nice in the headband. And I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow. A smidge. And this is just such a bright little color, right? A little more red there, and then I'll brighten it up as I come forward. Yeah. A little bit of touch of that. And then where you want to make it even, you know, like it's more in the sunlight, a little bit of that brighter orange at the front. Our little girl, she could have her hat finished, I feel. Don't we feel like she could?
Yeah.
I'm going to add a little of the yellow to her hat, just to differentiate those two a bit. I'm still going to find that grade color. I got a little bright. There we go. Come here and front of the hat. Just lightly brushing that back. Maybe right there in the brim I leave some of that dark color kind of still there, right? How you guys doing?
Good.
Get some white onto our brush, like white. Front of the hat. And maybe back. Okay? Hat. If you feel like either one has to be pushed back at all, remember the zinc trick. What can you do? You can always come with some zinc, right? But don't forget that you have zinc or other colors as an option if you need to make any adjustments to what you have here. Important thing is that you get your highlights in the front and your shadows in the back. Zinc here. Go ahead and just make sure that's in there. All right. Good. All right, so we have a nice little shadow. We can start putting our dress in. And I think I am going to take the dress longer. So what was our dress again? Do we remember?
Uh,
It was our ultramarine blue and our white.
I'm glad you remembered.
It helps if I do. I'm going to definitely take this in a little bit.
As long as one of us knows, we're going to be
Now,
okay.
you're going to notice that I pulled the stroke kind of to the left. The reason that I'm doing that, even though I'm going to have so many blades of grass and flowers and things over the, over the front of it, is that drag there implies that the plants and things have grabbed a hold of some of what she's wearing and are pulling on it. Gives a little implication of a little more blue there. What could be keeping the dress in shadow. I'm going to come across the waistband with that blue.
Are you wiping the brush off between colors?
Sometimes I wipe it off and sometimes I rinse it out. But a lot of times, like, I'll take it and I'll wipe it and then get some more color because it leaves just enough pigment on my brush for it to be, useful for me.
And it doesn't over wet the brush, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't over wet the brush. That's definitely, I'm going to pull a little bit of light down. I like to catch some different little ripples. Okay, and then the dress is quite white against her blue. So it shows that. It's okay if I get a little of this yellow into the white as I move forward, because this is in the sunlight and it will be warmed. I'm bringing this on the top of the ruffle, leaving that shadow right there. If I have her and I want a little bit more blue in her little back of the dress, I want to layer a little bit. See, very easy to do. Now it can help to get to one of your smaller brushes. You can use your number 2 Cambridge. You could use your number 2 Bright. I'm going to use my Cambridge. I'm going to put out a little more white just because this is starting to get a little hard to find clean white, and I definitely want some clean white. So I'm going to start that. As I'm going forward, I'm going to get some of my darker shadow color here, and I'm going to just pick out a few of my spaces. And it would be in darker shadow. So I'm making little shadows there. That would be in the fabric. Maybe a couple little bits back here. Like maybe inside that, coming down up. That gives us some dark little value to play against. Everything else, as I come forward, I'm definitely going to go ahead and get a little bit of yellow on my brush. Adding this wonderful light. Pushing some of those shadows into the fabric. You can see yellow and white pulling it forward. The front of her belly. So everything here, we're warming up everywhere we can. I can come in, highlight that little ruffle. I can highlight back there in that fold. Maybe like some really strong white right there and at the front. And then if you need some of that, like, it's got to be lighter, but it's still kind of in the cool area, you can come back here and You add those little highlights, but they're still cool, aren't they?
Yeah. So I almost had a personal challenge come here.
Oh.
So we had some requests for hair color in
Mm-hmm.
chat. So I
Mm-hmm.
dropped up the link to our website where if you go there to video and type in hair, it'll pull up a good number of videos, but it didn't pull up one with jet black hair. And I was like, I know you've painted some jet black hair. Sure enough, I did a search and found about 4 or 5 girls with jet black hair.
Yeah.
So I
I
put the
mean,
links in here. So there's a bunch of good supports out there, guys. So if you need some other hair references, other skin tone, other shapes, other sizes, we probably have them out there somewhere for cross-reference. But this is just this couple in the field. And you can adjust it as you want.
as you like.
You could add a Kraken. We have a video.
If you felt Kraken would improve your experience, go ahead and Kraken up. I'm not going to be insulted. I'm never mad when Kevin shows up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so these are the kind of cool shadows that are coming, and then I'm going to put her brighter colors up front. Just a little bit of the yellow, a smidge. Look at that. It's like the little sunlight caught her dress, isn't it? I love that feeling. I feel like I could have a little more of that on the mom. There we go. There, we can see that a little more in the mom now, can't we? I think we are pretty close to perfect on that.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, the hair. So I want to do red hair, but I want to do it with my burnt sienna. I'm going to come in, I'm going to take a little of my Cad Red Light into my burnt sienna and my number 2 Cambridge at first. I'm going to very carefully start to talk about the sort of little curly hair that she's got coming. I'm going to get these little edges. I'm going to have to get into my round pretty quickly. For the little girl's hair, I want, for the most part, it to be darker at the back.
That's a good question. So Wolfcat asks a very, very interesting question. Can you explain why the color white delivers blue information to our brain? I mean,
like scientifically, no, I don't really know, but it does.
But like we paint things blue to indicate that they're white.
Sometimes because we're talking about the shadow, the temperature of the shadow. Can I dry this real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. So as soon as she comes back, I'm going to ask her because she just fed into something which I think I've heard her talk about, which has to do with color, temperature of shadow, and how you can play with that as a composition element in your piece. So as soon as the Sherpa gets back, we're going to ask her about that. So
sorry, I got my hand all in that.
So Sherpa, you need to teach us here. So you're saying that we could play with that color, maybe use a different color to represent white?
Sure.
And that might be a way
I would say what's more important is tonal value and the warmth and cool of a color than anything. As for the scientific reason why our brain might interpret blue as white, I don't have that information.
But
that was not a course I took.
Just in general, we historically, from an art standpoint, there is a lot of blue representing white.
Yeah, there is. It's a. Oh, darn! I knew I got that. Sorry, guys. You don't want to rest your hand on that. Yeah, there is. You can look at paintings and you can see how like the masters painted white, and there's a shocking amount of color into it. You can look at Degas and different artists. White is a really wonderful color because it's very reflective of what's around it and very impacted.
Similarly, black does that too, doesn't it?
It does. It's got a lot of reflection of the world around it.
Which makes black hair interesting to...
Now I am pulling these tendrils forward pulling them forward. I don't want to lose all my little white on her dress. I'm trying to get the shape of the hair as best I can. There's a little bit. If I have to paint some hair out, I will. You see it's still dark under the hat, but we're starting to brighten as we come forward.
Mona also comments that snow oftentimes takes on a blue color.
Yeah, it can because it reflects the sky, I think.
I imagine that's, yeah, probably a good function of it.
So into my orange and brown mix, I've added a little bit of yellow. And up here at the front, I'm going to start talking about this area is having this as a reflection. You guys see that happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I bet Mona has like really seen a lot of that blue cast in the snow where she's at. Observe, like, I think where I really saw it in my life, where it really suddenly hit for me, is linens on a clothing line. First time I never got it until I saw linens on a clothing line. And then I did realize that the shadow in the white looked like a cool blue. And then I began to observe the artists whose artwork I really loved, how they painted light, dappled light. And I realized it wasn't just the light that they were painting, but the way that they painted the shadows created that sense of being outside in bright light. You know, that squinty bright light you can get into?
Mm-hmm.
The light you might have at the beach or different places.
It's really interesting how, as you start to study art, you start to see things you can't unsee.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be in school to study it. When you're studying is just when you're sitting still and observing what's going on around you.
Like, I can't not see clouds differently anymore. Like, just fundamentally, how I look at clouds and see them now is so much different than it was 5 years ago. And I think it's a much more enjoyable experience now. Like, I'm really looking at them now.
So what I'm doing here while John's talking about clouds,
Sorry.
it's true though, is I'm adding lighter and lighter values to the edges of the hair. I'm not trying to paint every hair.
And you're
not
just
what we're doing.
You're just doing it on the sun side, huh?
Yeah, where I'm lightening it up, where we're going to show some of this red in this space, hopefully. And we had such a nice time doing hair recently. It'll be fun to do again. I can come in, and this does help a bit sometimes to use a little fluid white, but you don't have to use the fluid by any means. I'm going to get a little more yellow on there and some of that white.
You scoot the palette over there just a touch. Oh, perfect. I unplugged RoboCam by moving RoboCam.
Oh, okay. I understand
itself.
how that happened.
Technically, it unplugged itself by moving itself too far.
And what you're going to see me doing is I'm going to take the tops of the tendrils of hair and I'm going to light them with that very bright color. See how that's lighting them?
Mm.
Like they themselves just got a little bit of sunlight in them. Not everything. And I'll do a similar thing with hers. Just the tendrils, just bits of it where the sunlight might have caught it. Now I'm going to go back into my red. A little bit of my yellow, a little bit of my red. And this is going to be quite a pop of color. And get some red, like the cad red into it. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
A little more water. I want to improve how the hair flows. A little bit back here. Catch some of those. And then you can even come into your deep cad. So a bit of the poppies can be happening for them, is kind of what we're doing. We're giving them a bit of the world of their poppies. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm doing as many little elements here I did for her as I did initially. It's important for you guys when you're trying to duplicate these things. Put that time and energy into the hair. And you can always put shadows back if you feel like you want some more shadows. You can always come in and take a little of your white and a little of your ultramarine. And if you want to come under here and make anything more defined or thought out, you can always do that. You have that room. Now, here I'm going to take a damp brush actually. And I'll remove this yellow because I don't need it anymore.
Those are just your guidelines, huh?
Yeah, they were just guidelines, and I can remove them. Anywhere I want to take them off, see? Where she's dry. See how it cleans up around the figures quite nicely? Like there around her arm. And it helps things start to appear sharp and considered and well thought out. Now, same brush. This number 4 is great. And we're going to start doing a couple things. I'm going to take, do I have any of this? Yes, I do. I'm going to take a little of my cad yellow and my yellow ochre and some of my phthalo green. And I'm going to come to the top here. I'm going to just very lightly, can you see what we're doing here? Begin to do a little bit of grass. This light is going to be right here a bit. It's going to come down here into the center of this grass. I'm going to get a little more of that light here as well, and I'm going to come around her dress. See how we're doing?
Oops, I think so.
All right, keep going. Very, very light right here. You want it to really pop compared to the rest of the background, and you're going to layer it over. Here we go. So there's a patch of light, and there's a patch of light here. For the purposes of the brush stroke, the next one you're going to do is you're going to do your brown and your green, and you're going to just make sure that you've got this little motion at first. That's all the canvas being deeply and well covered. There we go here. We're just making sure that these values are deep where we would want them to be deep. Right? Because what are these girls doing? They're blocking light. So the grass behind them, so the poppies behind them has to be a little bit darker. Not just what we want. It kind of like has to. There we go. From there. I do some of this soft work, so when I come in with my detail brush with my number 4 round, it's not such a big thing for me to do it, because now we're going to do the very, very busy work. And it is busy. I'm going to take some of my green-brown mixture that I have here and get really into my yellow. See what I'm doing? And we're going to start going just a little bit with the 4 round. Let me just improve the flow, because you do want good flow. See what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Just a lot of little fussy lines. And we're going to be here a minute. So now I can take a whole bunch of questions about like theory and stuff like that, because we're going to be here. I'm going to get some of my fluid paint for a hot second.
For a hot second?
Yeah, okay, we really are.
And the direction of these is somewhat important that it stays kind of consistent, right? You're making a
you don't
field
want
of,
them to, you want them to look a little unruly, but you know how grass will kind of grow in a plan? It'll have like it'll be like, we're all going to grow like this.
you're all going to be kind of leaning in the same direction. The wind is going to kind of blow them all together.
I'm going to put out some yellow ochre and some fluid white.
Yeah, that's
This is going to make my, making the grass flow off my brush a little easier. I'm going to use some of this. So see how that's a very light yellow? And then you can get some of the white into it.
That's a number 4 round.
Number 4 round. Making light colors. And I'm making little lines of grass. So this was probably like the most on any of the pieces. It's just getting all these little lines. The structure. You can go from the green and yellow to the yellow, ochre, and green, and just that's quite bright. So I'm going to enjoy that. Look at how that pops. And so you can see the lines do move a little bit. They're not all rigid. They're not all consistent. We're not making a pattern in any way. There's some nice light ones. Keep the lightest ones to the top. It's really nice sometimes to get the light ones at the top of the blades. You know,
That helps indicate that highlighting.
It does. It really does. Like right there.
Saves you some work later.
It saves so much work. And it feels like, oh my gosh, like almost like we're painting every single blade, doesn't it? We're not. I don't feel like it, especially when we go to paint it, you know, and we're trying to talk about it in that way where we're like saying, this is how it is. I'm going to take some of my green and my brown. You can always get your yellow ochre into it if you need to, but it's still your darker color. Let's merge these in. See how we're doing? What you see me doing when I dip in water and come and I go swirl, 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 I'm thinning the paint. What's up is my paint is too thick and I'm just thinning the paint. Sometimes I'll grab the ochre because it'll help the dark grass like cover a little bit better over her dress. Here we go. Just painting those little dark tendrils. You can see why I had us working so much on creating that depth in the beginning of the painting. I'm so looking forward to acrylic April. We're all going to work so much faster than this. I'm like actually pumped about it for myself, actually personally too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. You're putting lots of different little shade variations in there.
I'm really trying to so that it feels a little bit alive. So like maybe the overall value is that it's dark, but that, you know, feels wild and unruly.
This really is a lot about the layers.
This one is. It's a fussy way to do it, but I like it.
Yeah.
You know, and you could just go a really long time. Like I really, really promise you could go like a long, like you could be like, I just do this forever.
If you just add more layers, it will just get more and more lifelike.
You could be like, I'm just gonna go.
Now, there is a point of diminishing return where
there is. At some point, it can get a little weird for you.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's just about refining detail at some point.
This is a good time in a painting to just sit back and evaluate and see if there's anything that you're just like, I do not like it. If you have any of those things, I don't have any of those things.
While you're evaluating that,
I'm going to take I'm going to take a little bit of my orange and put it around. I'm going to evaluate and answer the question, and I can talk about it.
Well, I was going to say, what was the inspiration for this painting?
My mom and I went to France in a period of several trips, and because my mom's psychic said she should go to France and paint, so of course we did. And hey,
'Cause that's what you
I'm not
do.
arguing. Whatever gets you to go to France, right? So we rented a gate and we went to stay. Did several trips. It just became such the most life changing thing. And one of the things that we really like to do was look for fields of flowers. And so it was look for fields of poppies or look for lavender, which is really hard to find because it's a short season. And then fields of poppies is only in summer and only if the farmer's lazy, is what everyone kept saying. You have to wait for a lazy farmer because they had to not treat the field for poppies. So we would drive around in the car looking for poppies. And there's pictures of me, like I would get out because I was a photographer. 'Cause I'm the one who climbs the hill at 5 in the morning to get the light. So, because if your mom takes you to France, that's what you do. You do the work. So I'd run out into the field and get all the pictures, and mom would let me know what she wanted. And we were traveling up the Canal du Midi and just anywhere we could find them. And it's just my memory. Like I can't think of our time in the south of France without thinking of poppies. It's just, they're completely enmeshed. And also wild pig. Because there's a lot of that. You know what I don't want? I don't want a fit pig.
No.
No. I'm just going to pop just a little bit of this brighter cad in that, but not too much, right? We don't want too much of it. So that's where the inspiration for this came from. I saw this reference and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like our trip. And if there's a picture, my mother-in-law is always like, you need to paint this, with me just crouched down with my glasses taking pictures.
That's a pretty good painting or photo. I should say.
Yeah. Well, that was my mom actually took that one. That's one of the ones my mom took because she was taking pictures of me, taking pictures of poppies. It was like poppy inception.
Like Sherpaception.
Sherpaception. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing some of the dark poppies. I might add, and this is just, oh my gosh, just such a smidge of the ultramarine. Here's a trick. We're going to be talking about this a lot in Acrylic April, but when something is called Cad Red Deep, what does that mean?
It was deep in the drawer of paint supplies.
What that means, generally, not always, but generally in paint, if you see a color blah blah deep, color blah blah medium, and color blah blah light. So Cad Red Deep. That will generally mean that it leans more to the blue on the color spectrum.
Really?
It's a cooler red. Cad Red Medium, it's a warm red, but it's not the warmest red. And Cad Red Light is very leaned to the yellow. See, very orange. Medium, Cad Deep would be something you might think of more almost as a crimson. But they use the cadmium red pigment to create the paint. I'm going to put some of these dark colors down here. So when we're doing these color things, I mean, I could have bought all 3 CADs. It's certainly worthwhile. But what is it now? $40 a tube or whatever. And I'm not saying it's wrong because they take their life in their hands to make it. So I don't want to make it at all for any reason. I'll paint with it, but it is dangerous to make for the person because you can't get any in your lungs. The pigment. And of course, when it's dry is when it's going to get in there, floating around.
When it's trapped in acrylic, it's
pretty much done.
Pretty much trapped.
Now, the art companies did do a lot to take some of the more dangerous pigments and make them safer for the people making them. So these are coated, so they're less bioavailable, and it doesn't really get in through your skin unless you have an allergy to the pigment. It's not this is what they say right now. If they ever say anything different, believe you me, I'll tell you. But the current reality of it is that. And then you paint with it. Just don't eat it. Paint poppies with it. That's what it's for. So can you see how I'm making these like little dots?
Yeah.
They're not like the most perfectly painted poppies ever. You could do that if you felt like it, because these are certainly in the focal zone. Right? But they are, maybe that one will be larger, closer to us, and therefore you could be more detailed. if you were so inclined. I guess I got a little more poppy-ish there behind the girls this time. Because I got to talking. Talking. All right, now I'm going to get my pure red cadmium pigments. The whole reason why I paint with this stuff. You could use Pyro Red, by the way.
How many hoots do you think this is?
3.
3? Yeah, that's what
It's more in, I hope, in our Holly Hobby, like the Girl in Lavender stage. But it's still 3. There's a lot of layers here. There's a lot of techniques that you have to implement. You know, in the world of painting, it's technically for beginners because instead of just demoing and painting quietly, which I'm sure some people wish I would do.
And you know,
I'm explaining my thoughts. I'm on the side of the poppies that I imagine there would be sunlight. I'm adding a little bright pop of red. I'm just picking the sides of the poppies that I had in the dark value. See?
You know what everybody can do to help us? They can go out to our website and vote on what they think this can be.
Oh, that's true.
On a level of 1 to 3, because there's a little tool where you go right out to the website and you can tell us whether you think this is a 1, a 2, or a 3.
You can.
And it really helps.
Because we totally let you have a different opinion than us. Absolutely.
And we generally like it when you
do. I am not insulted if you choose to have a different opinion than me. Have a blast. I'll never teach you paint again. No, totally will. I'm going to make a little cluster of little poppies right there. Because I like them. So I want more. It's like frosting for me. There's more poppies. You know, cowbell? More poppies. You know, and if I'm like, oh man, I need some more in shadow, look at me. I'm just going to come here and I'll just put some deeper, darker values. Or I'm like, oh, I just want that more in shadow. So, totally doable. Watch this. Cadmium red light. Number 2 bright. Ruby Satin. By the way, the Ruby Satin brushes are awesome. Saying. And I'm going to dab little bits of paint where the sunlight's hitting. On the poppies that are in the sunlight. See how they're in the light?
Yeah.
There they are, in the light. Very loose. Loosey-goosey. I like to be loosey-goosey. You don't have to be loosey-goosey too. I like to talk about how they feel, much less than any one individual particular puppy. I think I'm over poppying now. Sometimes you got to know when to walk away. I think I'm getting a little overexcited with my poppies. So
there's some nice poppies there, though.
I feel like I'm poppied. I think if I get any more poppies, I'll have over poppied. I'm gonna take my I don't know where I'm gonna put my detail brush. I'm gonna just use this, and I'm gonna get my yellow and my white, my fluid white, because that's gonna make signing super easy. I'm gonna come down here very gently. Write my name as best I can with this brush.
You're pretty good there.
It's all right. You know who made it, right? Kind of jacked up signature there, but there we go. Did you guys love this? I hope this was fun. Let me turn around. We're going to put this aside. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, take my glasses off. Oh, gosh, that's nice, isn't that? Isn't that
really
just France?
Nice. Yeah.
It's just France. I come from France.
Well, you do.
Well, I was very blessed to be able to stay in the south of France, thanks to my mom, and paint and paint and paint, take photographs and
paint.
Get a sense of things and figure out you really got to say un salad vert, otherwise you get gizzards. to specify things. I had a blast. I love the people. I love the communities. I love Carcassonne. I love the poppy fields.
I love all these people who are painting with us today.
I love that you guys are painting with us today. So hopefully this took you out of your life for a minute and let you be imaginative and let you relax a bit. I hope you love your paintings. We've got the girl in lavender. We have the girl in the blue bonnets. We just did the two sisters and all those gorgeous daisies. And now we have the mother and daughter and poppies. Yes, boys are coming. I have totally heard you. And one more girl in the field is coming up, which is like the full France. It's the full France. You're going to love it.
The full France?
The full France.
Huh.
All right. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at the easel really soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.